Buzzcast.
Hey, welcome everyone to episode 2 of the Nacha Alliance uh, Pay by Bank Buzzcast. What is the use cases? I'm here with Mike Hurd of Nacha, Jill Hoffman of Plaid, and Logan Beats of US Bank. Mike, do you want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Hey, hi. Thanks, Andrew, and hi, everyone. I'm Mike Hurd with the Nacha team, and I head up our ACH network administration services. So that's everything from the rules, risk management, advocacy, and I've been leading our work on Pay by Bank.
Jill?
Thank you. Well, at Plaid, I lead our industry relations open finance function. And what that means is that I work with banks and fintechs and other partners like Nacha to help to drive under better understanding of our technology and its use case benefits. And that includes supporting initiatives like Pay by Bank and how we can help drive safer account to account payments.
And Logan?
Hi, I am at US Bank on the digital assets and money movement team, where our team's focus is looking at innovations that occur in the payment industry and how those might impact our customers and just the bank as a whole, or the industry for that matter. And one of my focuses this year has been on Pay by Bank and open banking payments.
Great. And I'm Andrew Gomez. I'm a senior advisor at Payloom. And along with Mike, I've been heading up the Nacha Alliance project team on Pay by Bank. So let's dive right in. Mike, what do you think are the main use cases that are currently or potentially even later on will be supported by Pay by Bank?
Yeah, I think some listeners might be a little surprised at my answer here, but what I'm going to say is that I think the strongest use case currently that we see today for pay by bank payments are the same kinds of use cases that are already strong for bank account payments, things like bill payments. So, your utilities, your credit cards, your insurance payments, um, account to account transfers, transferring funds to an account at another financial institution or to a brokerage account or digital wallet, and other types of common recurring payments like subscriptions and donations. So these are kinds of use cases that are already very prevalent in being made with bank accounts. And a lot of that activity is moving to a pay by bank a payment method where if you listen to the first Buzzcast, you'll know that our project team's definition and key differentiator is that these are payments that are directly made from one bank account to another that are enabled or initiated through open banking technology. So um, we really see things in the marketplace today where the strongest use cases for pay by bank are very similar to those where bank account payments are already prevalent. I think there's a lot of speculation about whether pay by bank would become prevalent in other types of use cases, such as for purchases of goods, whether that's online through e-commerce or at in-store checkout. My view on that is that that's still kind of the jury's out on that, but don't know whether that we'll see that become prevalent or not. But certainly that's an area that a lot of parties are interested in learning about or finding out what's going on.
Mhm. And Jill, what are you seeing over at Plaid? What are the main use cases that you see being used for Pay by Bank?
Well, I think it's important, sort of what Plaid brings to this conversation is we are not the money to money layer here, right? So what we're Plaid is we're the connect and verify layer. And so for whatever the use case is, our, Plaid's role is to ensure that that any of the payments are sort of anchoring back to what we're saying from the alliance is pay by bank, which is account secure, or it's an account to account secure and powered by open banking, and that's where Plaid comes in. And so for us, all of the use cases that the consumers want to adopt, that we're prepared to help support that verify layer. But in terms of where we're seeing the market right now, certainly the things that Mike was just describing are the more prevalent use cases. Definitely billing and recurrent billing. I mean, how many of us have had a merchant contact us at some point in our history and say, "Oh, your credit card number is expired. You need to enter your new credit card number." With Pay by Bank, account to account, and the utility and the value of Pay by Bank is there's no expiration of a bank account number, and so once that payment has been authorized and it's secure, then it takes away from those negative experiences and having to re-enter information, etc. And all of that is a real benefit. So definitely billing and recurring billing is a place where we're seeing a lot of interest and we're having a lot of success in the market.
Mm. And Logan, being the banker on the group, what can you say from U.S. Bank's perspective?
Sure. So from the bank perspective, we have to look at it on both sides of the transaction, both the payee and the payer. So we kind of have two different users to look at here. From the consumer payee perspective, or sorry, the payer, um, they want ease of use, that security, that confidence that the payment is going to be made. And so Pay by Bank is a service that really makes that a little bit easier for them and gives them peace of mind when they enter their online banking credentials instead of giving over a card number. From the payee perspective, the merchants or other institutions that are looking to accept payments, they're often looking for any way to reduce their costs, whether those costs are interchange fees that they pay if they're accepting a card payment, or if they are fraud fees, anything related to fraud, whether that's the actual chargeback itself or the research of a fraudulent transaction that just drives up their overall operating costs. And Pay by Bank is seen as an opportunity that's we're exploring to reduce all of that and make everybody a little bit happier.
Yeah, I feel like it's really hard to talk about anything in payments today without mentioning fraud at some point. Um, but moving on, Mike, I'd be really curious. We talked a little bit so far about consumer initiated or the pay by bank payments where the consumer is making a payment, whether it's a credit transfer or potentially a debit transaction. But pay by bank is more than just consumer payments. Could you talk to us a little bit more about some of the other money movements that we see pay by bank supporting?
Yeah, so I think you hit on one, which is kind of a me to me scenario for an account transfer, right? Transferring funds from one account at one financial institution to the other. It could be like a savings account or a brokerage account, or transferring funds into a digital wallet, for either an immediate transaction or something that's stored to be used at a future time. So I see those as fairly common. I'd also kind of call out things like, a donation. Something like a donation, looks fairly similar to a bill payment from a transaction, processing scenario. It's a consumer to business, but it's for a different purpose. But donations are commonly made out of bank accounts today. Hopefully, we're replacing some check volume there. I've had personal experiences. I continually get hit up to donate money to the schools that my kids attended, and in one instance, I make that payment and connect to my bank account through open banking. It's a classic pay by bank transaction scenario, and it works perfectly. It was easy to initiate. I set up a recurring payment. So my account gets debited once a month to make the donation to that school. In the other instance, the other school did have the capability, but they made it a fairly hard consumer experience. It was buried. It was not a prominent option. I had to go search for it. I was probably the only person in that entire day of fundraising that found it and utilized it. So for them, for some reason, it wasn't a priority. At the end of the day, it still worked, but again, not a positive consumer experience. So, kind of maybe that is a thought for entities like schools, or other billers or other originators or merchants that want to adopt this as a payment method for consumers is, right, what's the consumer experience like? When it works well, It can be tremendously easy and straightforward and fast. Another example I have is I enrolled to connect my bank account in the Uber app. And boy, that couldn't have been an easier experience. It took seconds, made the connection. So now when I take an Uber ride, it's a debit to my bank account using ACH.
Yeah, it's interesting how those positive experiences really stay with you, right? I mean, you
Right.
might be telling this story in years about how easy it was to connect something, whereas on the flip side, when you have a negative experience, you also remember that for years, and it's going to be very difficult for that company to convince you to come back. Maybe Jill, could you talk a little bit about what Plaid is seeing in the Me2Me space? I mean, do you guys have any information on or any way of determining if it's a consumer bill pay or if it's a Me2Me transaction? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, thanks, Andrew. I think, some of the challenges with me to me has been, and I certainly have experienced this in my personal life, when you have, more than one bank account or brokerage account or anything like that, and you just simply want to move money from one place to the other, and you don't want to encounter the friction of delays and just giving money to yourself, essentially, and or transferring it from one account to another and then being able to do that. And so I think some of the real benefits of me to me are being able to, in a more secure and faster way, be able to transfer those funds from account to account. Certainly, whether or not I want to move it into my own wallet, or a consumer wants to move it into their own wallet, or if they want to move it over to a brokerage account or whatever it is, that it becomes a lot simpler because of that account, because Pay by Bank facilitates an easier verification and faster and more secure way to transfer those funds without the downtime of having to wait for the funds for days and days in many cases.
Mm. And Logan, I'm guessing this is a big topic for not just for US banks specifically, but banks in general, is making sure you get that user experience right. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the pieces that our users are really liking about Pay by Bank is not necessarily what comes from the bank, but by using, that other wallet to get that payment into. So, for instance, if I'm moving funds using Pay by Bank into a brokerage account, or sports betting goes live in my state starting in December. So, if I wanted to move funds into a sports betting wallet using Pay by Bank, they have that greater security that they know that the funds are going to be available based on the open bank connection. And so then as the user, they will feel more comfortable giving me the funds to use at that moment, as opposed to putting a delay on there saying these funds aren't available for use, come back Monday. So I think that that is a big part of the user experience that our customers are liking, both from the consumer side, where they have access to the funds, where they want them, where they put them, and from the provider, where they can provide a better experience to their customer, and everybody kind of wins.
Mm. Yeah, I noticed as well that with my previous broker, I was actually able to set up a debit, so I could go in there and say, "Here's how much I want to send," and then they would debit my account, and then I liked it because I knew it was coming from my account, so I could trust it, and it allowed me to make that stock purchase or that ETF purchase, knowing that the funds were going to be there relatively quickly. Um, Maybe moving on to the last kind of, we haven't, talked really too much about the business side of things. Mike, is there anything you want to mention about B2B payments or how businesses are going to be affected by Pay by Bank and the promise it holds?
I think there's future promise. I think our assessment of current state is that Pay by Bank really isn't deployed or used too much in a B2B sense. I think with business to business payments, there are complicating factors in a kind of a corporate treasury scenario, accounts payable, accounts receivable, about who is authorized to act on an account or to enroll an account for something like Pay by Bank. I don't think that that is an insurmountable hurdle, but I think the market deployment in the B2B space is probably not there yet where it is for consumer transactions. But certainly, um, in the business to business space, businesses pay bills just like consumers pay bills. Businesses have the equivalent of me-to-me transactions. I think we in the treasury space we call it cash concentration, where you'd want to have a linkage between accounts so you can move money between accounts. So I think there's a lot of future potential there. But I think there are some like just how do payments work in a corporate treasury space is also different than how consumers make payments.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, businesses obviously are a lot more complicated, and the decision-making process or the authorization process for a business is much different than if I'm wanting to make a payment and
Yeah,
I make a
I,
decision.
I think one of the things to that would have to be solved for is many sophisticated, maybe even just a lot of business in general, generally have tools to to defend their account. Things like debit blocks, things like positive pay, and so is the person enrolling or acting upon an account to use pay by bank. Is that person also able to um, accurately set up that payment within a positive pay environment so that it's successful rather than getting rejected. Again, I think that's an example of a difference in business payments that needs to be overcome for pay by bank to be successful there.
Mm. And Jill, anything you can add to that? Seeing as you probably work quite a lot actually with businesses as well.
Yeah. We do. And I would just say, first of all, I support, Mike's comments regarding, the hurdles and the challenges that need to be overcome in order to have more um, um, uptake of business to business payments. But I think for Plaid, some of the real value that and opportunity that we see for this market is certainly, I mean, think about vendor payments, right? I mean, I don't know about you all, but I know a lot of folks who are small businesses who are vendors, right? And I'm sure
Right.
that they would like to receive their payments faster. And it just helps, it just makes the everything move faster. It provides a lot more security and opportunity for those small businesses to continue to go out there and create business and because they're obviously working off smaller balance sheets and so depending on the size of the business and so the ability for them to request a payment
Hmm.
and then have that company pay them in a faster, more efficient, secure way than going through the check process, etc. Then that can take a while in some cases compared to using the modern technologies and then I think then we can certainly see some opportunity for why business to business really
Yeah.
should have some opportunity for the future. And I'll just say this that we've already seen that in terms of consumers. Like we've had a pilot this year with Carvana for request for payment. And if a consumer wants to buy their car and they can use Carvana and they can request to pay for their bank to pay Carvana. And we've been piloting that use case this year and we're seeing a lot of benefit from that. So we just think that that could be expanded to other use cases as well.
Jill, I
Mm.
think that's a great point about small businesses. That may be the lower hanging fruit where it's still a business to business payment, right? But
Mhm.
some of those small businesses act more like consumers, and it might be a good first kind of lower hanging fruit opportunity for enrolling in pay by bank.
Mm.
Mhm.
Logan,
And I
anything
would,
you can add in on there?
yeah, mostly just to echo what both Michael and Jill have said. Our customers, do see the appeal. So talk to some of the corporate treasure customers. They think that this is a neat idea. There is opportunity there, but it is a very different payments experience when you're doing accounts payable and account receivables at a treasurer level. And so there may be opportunity in pay by bank, but that is a much longer term opportunity that needs to be a little more mature before it kind of gets there. But from the small banking or small business perspective, there's a lot of opportunity just with for all of the normal benefits that a consumer receives from pay by bank. And we're having more and more small business customers interested in learning more about a pay by bank solution.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that because actually just yesterday I was at an open banking conference here in Germany, and that was actually one of the conclusions is from one of the other bankers on the panel was saying that they see a lot more interest in pay by bank in Europe at least from a small business perspective, and it's
Mhm.
specifically because of the cash flow issues that were mentioned, as well as Mike was saying, it's the ease of use and familiarity that when a small, 1 to 2, 3 person company is trying to receive money, they kind of default to the how would I do this when I'm a consumer? And I think there's a really good point there. Yeah, and I think that brings us really to the end of today's session. I just want to let listeners know that we have a third podcast coming or Buzzcast coming out on the risks and benefits of Pay by Bank. So if you haven't gotten tired of hearing about Pay by Bank, there's another one coming up shortly. So stay tuned.
Thank you for watching Buzzcasts, a program of Nacha's Payments Innovation Alliance. Buzzcasts are for informational purposes only, and its contents do not constitute legal or financial advice. Opinions expressed are not necessarily the views or positions held by Nacha. All rights reserved.